Hey everyone, my name is Austin Zenner, and today I'm going to be going over my campaign called Let Them Burrow. So, the issue here is that it is a preventative animal welfare campaign that will address the misinformation around the care of ferrets. A lot of other people don't really know how to care for them, or new owners just don't have enough information, and they end up neglecting their pets because they just don't understand how much attention ferrets really need. And this campaign is asking owners to commit at least 30 minutes of daily enrichment every day so that they can have a better life, and the ferrets will have less health problems, and they will just need to complete the interactive Build a Rural Pledge on the app. So the reality here is that even though ferrets do sleep 14 to 18 hours a day, these are crepuscular animals, which means they're only active at dawn and dusk. So they're really only up 5, 6 hours a day. The only other times they get up is to go to the bathroom every 4 hours, and they eat every 4 hours because they have really high metabolism rates. They're an extremely active animal. They're socially driven. They need way more than 4 hours of daily supervised playtime out of their cage and constant interaction. They need to have stimulation in their environments as well. And these ferrets are not meant to live in cages. They're not a cage animal. They're small predators that need to hunt. They need to explore, and they're also a burrowing animal, so they need tubes too, and they need dark spaces. It just helps to regulate their behavior. So there's some three different competitors here. There's the American Ferret Association, local ferret rescues, and pet store care guides. Um, And here's some hard data, about 80% of the ferrets in their lifetime, they'll spend sleeping. About 60 to 70% of them are middle-aged, or when they are middle-aged, they end up developing adrenal gland disease, which is a hormone cancer. So, and about 50% of these ferrets that are surrendered are also under 1 year old, and they need at least 4+ hours of daily interaction in order to not really get depressed. Here's some hard data sources I found for all my info on the website. And just here's a little bit more right here. So here's my target audience psychographic characteristics. Uh, you know, here's a little bit more key demographics. So here's my wordless name generation. I had a few here, let them burrow, burrow and play, forever enrich, fair pledge, tunnel time. These three down here are my most favorite. Let them burrow, forever enrich, tunnel time were my favorites, but I ended up going with let them burrow because it just sounded better. Here's my mood board for all of the words that I could think of that would get me to where I was now. Here's some other photos I found online that uh, that I found for inspiration for the website. So here's the first graphic campaign. This is on a billboard. CTA here is if they fit, they go. Learn before adopting. What this means is make sure before you go out and adopt one of them that you actually have all the information you need before committing to it because these are a long-term care animal and they have a lot of needs. For my second graphic campaign, this would show a ferret sleeping right here on the left, and then on the right there is showing a ferret that's mildly active. And on the bottom, the CTA says not a low energy pet. These animals are not they're not they're very they take a lot of time. You need to spend a lot of time caring for them. You can't just lock them in the cage all day. It's not really going to work that way, and it's you're not really going to have a pet then because they're not going to last long. So here's some ideas that I had for my logo creation. As you can see, these are some pretty basic, simple ones, but these didn't really make it into the final ideation. So this is the one that I ended up going with for the preliminary logos. Um, it was going to be a black hole, but I ended up changing it in the end. So here's some brand colors and the typography. So for the heading, it's Monster at bold, and the subheading is Monster at medium. And then for like the body copy, like the regular text where all the info would go, it's just open sans regular. And then I ended up doing a few different variations of the logo for the final versions of them. And I ended up going with the top left one. It just looked a lot better because you can see the background, but you can also see the ferret in the logo and all the words. Here's just some text for the microsite that I've been using or reworded anyway into a newer version. Here's a little bit more. You know, Section 3, steps, learn, build, commit. Its closing lines would be small daily changes create a lifelong well-being. There's a community pledge page, take the borough pledge. Then, the pledge statement will say this on the microsite, I commit to provide daily enrichment and supervised playtime. I'll prioritize proper diet habits and setup and social interaction. I will continue learning so my ferret can thrive. And the CTA button at the bottom that the person would click would be I take the pledge, which is also the check mark at the bottom. So here's an updated microsite. So they would go from home to why it matters, how it works, fair needs and behaviors, common care and misconception, learn about enrichment, build our borough, community pledge, and then you would go to the next one, which would take the pledge, and then you would get a thank you for taking the pledge. This here is one of my user personas for it. Then the user flow here, primary conversion flow is in the blue. Education path flow would be the green, why it matters, how it works. And then the pledge form, and then direct action flow would be the community pledge, from how it works to pledge form. This here is some wireframes I had in the early development stages. Then a style frame for one of the high fidelity landing page, before the mock-ups came. And then this is what the final logo looked like. And then for my market strategy, the headline would be 4 hours every day, and the subheading would be that's what thriving looks like. And then the CTA is take the 30-minute pledge. And then here's the style guide with the current colorways that I had. Um, you know, I chose this one because the ferret icon is curiosity and natural behavior, which would help reinforce this campaign's message about giving proper enrichment to the ferrets while also giving them proper care as well. But having stacked word arrangement, it helps. I think it helps create more of a visual hierarchy, which does draw attention to the concept of burrowing. I have the primary color, which is burrow brown, and then I have the standard gray for the secondary color. And then I have right here for the logo, it's minimum size that it has to be. If it went any smaller than what it is, it just would not work on anything. So on physical prints, it's 1.5 inches width, and then on digital version, it's 150 pixels width. And so you can see here, this is what you don't want to do with the logo. You don't want to rotate it. You don't want to change the color of the logo. And you also don't want to make the background different or a brighter color with a dark logo. It's kind of hard to see and it kind of throws people's eyesights off. So here's some typographic standards and hierarchy. A monster with bold, it's 48 to 60 points for Let Them Burrow. It's used for main titles and section headers, and then the semi-bold monsterette is used for subsections and important titles. While the body text is open sans regular, which can be anywhere from 14 to 18 points. Uh, this is actually the main text for all the paragraphs, explanations, and any content that's just longer that needs to be explained. You can see, this just continues on to the next slide. And then for the imagery standards, here's some colors you want to use. You got sun-kissed comfort, gentle meadow, and then bright and breezy. Versus the ones on the right here, you do not want to use those, like neon overload, money mess, and then like random rainbow. It's just, dude. And this is what I ended up going with for the final type pairing. For the heading, I went Monster at Bold. The subheading, I went Monster at Medium. The body copy, I went with Open Sans Regular. And on the right here, you can see these are two other ones that I did try to combine, but they just didn't really work. No Lobster and Open Sans and Bayless New and Roboto. And this is what the final mock-up looks like of the microsite. Here's the home page. You would click next. Then it would take you to why it matters. You hit next, how it works, fair needs and behaviors, common care and misconceptions, learn about enrichment, build their borough, the community pledge, which is the full take. And then after they click that button, they would then come onto the community/pledge page. And here's the commitment: commit to giving my favorite daily enrichment supervised plan a safe space to explore. Which then, where this lady's thumb is at, you would hit that box and a check mark would appear, and it would take you here to, and it would say thank you for taking the pledge. I wanted to say thanks to everyone for stopping in and listening to what I have to say. Thanks.